Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more months than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day, and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Agape Garcia. Be Your Incredible Self, or BYIS, best describes Agape's tenacious attitude towards empowering others. Over the past 35 years, she has navigated through domestic violence, privacy, safety, vulnerability, and the mindset to endure personal adverse events in life. Her survival of a double attempted homicide while 8 months pregnant by the father, and the desperation to survive became the catalyst to the foundation of BYIS while achieving an undisputed outlook of independence. During her journey to overcome, Garcia learned that extreme independence is a trauma-driven response, and a natural one can be defeated through focused self-awareness and intentional control. Her personal journey of post-traumatic growth has led Agape to dedicating her life in developing transformational programs, various forms of coaching, certification codes, and establishing a nonprofit to help real-time victims. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Agape. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you. I give a heck.
Awesome. Appreciate that. It's always a good thing to give a heck about life and others. So one of the things I focus on my podcast is some people call it a back end story, but really at the end of the day, it's superficial to me. What have you done? What have you accomplished? Well, people will start, where do they start? Well, from their success moving forward. Really at the end of the day, though, my listeners and myself want to get to know, like, and trust you. And in order to do that, your origin is so important. So from when you were a little person all the way up to where you are now is important for people to understand that you had trials and tribulations. You had things that you've gone through, which I actually, touched on some of it in your bio. So Agape, tell me your origin story and what key things from your childhood to adulthood led you to where you're at currently.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, as we all know, there's so much that stems from our childhood that makes up our adulthood, right? So I was born and raised in Chicago, and I was with both parents for a couple years, my first 2 years of life, that is. And my mother ended up packing her bags and leaving her husband and her 2 daughters behind. So very quickly, we had inherited voids. Not having a mother is a big deal. Obviously, as a child, that's not known at the time. It's just a void and an absence, right? So shortly after she had left, my baby sister was diagnosed with cancer, and unfortunately, she did not even make it to her third birthday. So that left my young dad with just me and him figuring out how to cope with his wife leaving, him losing his baby girl, and now how is he supposed to cope? So that resulted in him being checked out, literally like working third shift and sleeping all day. So his social life and his needs were met at night while I was sleeping, and while he was sleeping and it was my daytime, it really wasn't a thought. So in my grammar school years, I would have to say probably starting in third grade, I was delivering newspapers, mowing lawns, washing cars, cleaning houses, watching the kid while the mom, was washing dishes or cooking or taking a shower. And with that money, I would go across the street to the grocery store to make sure that I had food. Um, there were a lot of neighbors that kind of understood the situation without conversations needing to be had. And, thankfully, I was brought in to many different homes and kind of fed and raised by others. Like I said, with a absent mother and a checked out dad, what you don't learn in the house, the streets will teach you. So I learned quite a bit out there. And I found ways to cope during those very sad times, because it's so lonely. It's so quiet that it's loud. I found things to do and get involved in after school. I was in like every play. I was in every after school activity. I walked a mile to and from school. There was also the recreation park where you could, sign up for gymnastics or wood shop and things of that sort, which I surely did that as well. Um, and also I spent a lot of time at the cemetery visiting my sister after school, because the cemetery was closer to school than where I lived. So there is where I spent a lot of my emotional bonding time, doing homework and just feeling like that's where I had some sort of connection. And as long as, I woke my dad up before I went to sleep, he would get to work on time. you know. And so that was pretty much childhood. I don't think I really had one. I had to figure things out and learn how to survive. Um, I don't know my mother's side, and my dad's side, nobody else had children. So I'm literally the only one standing as a child is concerned.
So you've obviously gone through quite a bit more so than majority of the population would expect anybody to have, gone through, and you're a survivor, obviously, through the trials and tribulations. Um, yeah, it's unfortunate. I unfortunately can tell you that there's a lot of people out there that have one absentee parent. Sometimes it's the guy, sometimes it's the woman. I had a friend of mine, similar situation. His mom checked out of their lives. There was three boys, checked out of their lives for 18 years. And she came back into their lives 18 years later and try being their parent. They're all adults at this point, right? So it's unfortunate, but it happens. Obviously, you've learned a lot from that yourself. How has it affected you in your current state, though? So your origin and what you've gone through, and like you said, you had sad times that were so quiet yet so loud. You talked about the fact of plugging into extracurricular things, kept yourself busy and et cetera, et cetera. Did that transmit into your adult years where you took on more than you should have, or you have avoided people because of it?
So 100% to everything and more, of course. I think that maybe I should talk a little bit about my teenage years too, because I
Sure,
think that
that'd be
that's a
great.
huge buffer between the childhood and the adulthood, right? So, as I had mentioned, my mother was the one that packed her bags and left, and, not just to run off with another, but also because the environment was not, the best and something that she was unable to tolerate. So, to further that a little bit, I was a recipient of some of that environment that she left me in. Like I said, my dad was young, and he coped the best that he knew how, but I was also a recipient of rough housing too much, a little too far. DCFS was called every year to my house from neighbors or people at the school. I was never taken out of the home, but they surely came to visit every year. So by the time I got to high school, I'll be very transparent and I'll tell you that I dropped out as a sophomore because I already knew how to have a positive work ethic. I already knew that I could take care of myself. I already knew that I could handle what I thought life, was all about. And on top of dropping out, I also got involved with, teenage dating, which ended up being a violent relationship. as well. Again, being raised in Chicago, that's kind of what's around you all the time. Violence is the norm. I mean, gosh, when we had metal detectors that we had to go through before we even entered the school. So that's telling you, how normal it is. And so I didn't really, at that time, I can't say that I knew better. I just knew that's what life had, that's what it brings. And so I ended up pregnant, also as a teenager. And at that time, I was working full time, and I had told him that I was not going to tolerate any violence at this point. I had dealt with it all my life. We had been in it all of our relationship. And now that I'm pregnant and bringing a baby into the world, I am not going to repeat any patterns that either one of my parents brought to me. I'm not going to be a checked out parent. I'm not going to be an absent parent. I'm not going to be a parent that exposes my child to everything. I'm going to be that loving parent that is protecting, And so there was an agreement, and like textbook, there's always an agreement, right? So that unfortunately did not last very long. After my daughter was born, he also decided to turn to the streets, which was very wrong timing. And the only reason I accepted him in my life back then was, in my book, if you weren't of the streets, then I don't have to be so concerned about, my life. And so when he decided to turn to the streets, I decided to pack my bags and my baby, and we left at that point. So I would say that I was 18 by that time. And so my baby and we moved into a cold basement where there was no heat. It was just cement floor and brick walls with a bathroom. And that was okay with me. I bought some remnants carpet and a microwave and made a little studio and bought some space heaters. And as long as we were safe and at peace, that's what mattered to me. He ended up, pursuing some of or not pursuing, but he continued his abusive behaviors, stalking, trying to kidnap my daughter while I'm outside in the front yard playing with her. The list goes on and on. Eventually, he ended up leaving the States because he got himself into, trouble on the streets, which at that point, I felt relieved because now I could just raise my daughter on my own and not have to deal with that drama and be okay. So that was, I can't say that was the plan, but that's what became the plan. And that's exactly what happened. So I went back for my GED and continued working full time. There was, obviously some stress levels there because, family for me really wasn't around to help me with my, with the upbringing of my daughter. So I was stuck with his mother, and she was, unfortunately, looking back, she was very manipulative and brainwashed the crap out of me because her whole approach was, you never had a mother, so you don't know how to be a mother. You're not going to understand what the baby needs. I've had 5. I know everything, and nobody's going to love her and understand like a grandmother. And I mean, it was just embedded into my brain that I actually believed it. And then, after some time, and when I say some time, I'm not talking about a long time, like, about 6 months into that, I'm like, this is not going to work. I'm the mother, and literally had to call the cops several times just to get my child out of her house. It was insane. So that definitely helped me look at, what kind of future do I really want to create, and how do I create, what path do I walk down in order to get there? And, it just meant that I need to stay in school. I need to continue my education. I need to continue, looking for better jobs. I was working at a neighborhood pet store at the time, and it was a family owned. So I appreciated them with all my heart. They let me bring my daughter to work with me. I remember having her, in the walker. I remember having her in the stroller. Like, they just supported me and believed in me and knew that I was trying to do the right thing for the right reasons. And I'm just so grateful that I had that opportunity. And even as I grew and went to corporate America, when I had to come in on the weekends, I literally recall putting my daughter, and it was okay, it was approved by my boss. I put her in like those huge popcorn packing bins in the shipping and receiving department, and just rolled it over to my cubicle, and she's in there playing while I'm trying to hurry up and do my work. And I would have to say that it's just an open mouth doesn't get fed. If you need something and you need help, more than likely, you will receive it, especially in that type of circumstance where if you're a single parent and you're raising your kid and they want, somebody's asking you to do something, the answer can be yes or no. And then there could be that, but I'll need some help from you, and it definitely worked out for me. So fast forwarding to in my 20s, we had moved out the hood by that time, and I had established an excellent support system. I lived in a 1 mile radius of my child's school, my child's caregiver, and my job. So this way, even if something happened with my vehicle, I wouldn't need to ask for any help, or I wouldn't have to call off because I couldn't get somewhere. I could just walk all directions. So I was very intentional at that time in my life. And I felt that I had, gotten over that void of, not having my sister. I got over that void of, not having my mother. I feel that I was blessed with so many moms that, helped me through my teenage years, especially, in the neighborhood. And, you couldn't tell me anything. I was in college. I was paying my own bills. I had my stuff together. I felt like I dealt with trauma. I forgave everybody. Nobody owed me anything. I just want to be in peace and raise my kid the way I want to raise my kid. So that's exactly the approach I took. That's what I did. And, I would say that was for about 3 years that I was high on life, feeling great, like I had my stuff together. And I ended up dating somebody else and giving, myself an opportunity to trust again, or to try to do things right, considering it's 8 years later. My daughter's in second grade at this point. And so it got a little serious to the point where my second baby was on the way, and they were offered a position across country, and the offer was extended to me. We were not married at the time, but he did extend that offer just if if I wanted to go or stay, because he knew, my support system. I'm in school, I'm working, my daughter's in school, just everything. And it didn't take long for me to answer. Of course, when you're from the hood, the success of getting out of the hood is a success all by itself. So, it's exciting times. So of course he went first to get settled, because I needed time to get all of my stuff situated and whatnot. And I ended up driving across country at 7 months pregnant. And it was going to be some time before my items have, arrived. So my focus was solely on getting, her transferred to her new school, meeting my new doctors, getting acquainted with the area, and, just making sure that the cabinets were filling up with food. And, just kind of, I was preparing to nest as soon as I was able to, unload my stuff upon arrival. So it was about 3 weeks later, and I was so excited when my stuff got there, because that's all I've been waiting for, to, unpack and get settled. And while I'm putting stuff away, I came across the remnants of another woman. And I was like, okay, hold on a second. My heart is beating out of my chest. My thoughts are running wild. I'm trying to remember, did he tell me somebody was coming? Did he have family? What kind of visitors? Like, I don't want to assume the worst. I just gave everything up. I'm here. How am I gonna not allow this to like eat me alive all day? I want to wait until he's home and we can talk face to face. So it was a very long day of torture. And I decided that I was going to wait until, I had put my daughter to sleep that day, so we could just have our one-on-one, time. And that's when I was going to bring up the conversation. So I did exactly that. And I said, I just want to ask a question, because when I was putting stuff away, I had came across, the belongings of another woman, and I'm just really confused because I don't recall you telling me that anybody was here. And I just want to know, was I supposed to, I could have stayed home. And he accused me of going through his belongings. So I repeated myself. I said, okay, maybe you didn't hear me. I said that while I was putting my belongings away, I came across the belongings of another person. And I could not even finish my sentence. He already had me on the floor. He was sitting on my pregnant stomach. I was 8 months at the time. His left hand was around my neck, and his right hand is closed fist punching me over and over and over in the head. And I can recall squirming around. I don't recall screaming or making noises. I must have been, though, because I heard this faint voice from the top of the stairs, "Mom, mom." And that was a voice I never heard before. And as soon as it registered into my brain, I felt this incredible, like, I don't even know how to explain it, just like this incredible wind of heat or something that just went through my body, and my feet slammed on the floor and my hips thrusted towards the ceiling while my neck was used as a kickstand, and it allowed him to kind of get thrown forward. And it was enough for me to get up. And by the time I got up, my daughter was already at the bottom of the stairs. I grabbed her and we ran outside just like that, as is. And, it's about 11 o'clock already, 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I ran to a neighbor's house and was just banging on their door, begging to use their phone. I'm obviously extremely distraught. I don't even know how they understood what half of the stuff that I was saying. And, I asked for my daughter to go play with the kids that were still awake in their house. And I made that call. And I just remember boohooing the whole time, waiting for them to call. Like I couldn't say anything. I couldn't even think straight. I mean, the only thing that I was thinking was like, this is my reality right now. Everything that I have, my whole entire life that I just left behind, I have nothing here. I know no one. No family, no friends. I barely, know how to get through the neighborhood. I don't know if my baby's okay. I know I'm for sure going to have to go to the emergency room to check, to make sure that, my unborn son is okay. And I just couldn't, I didn't even think that I would be able to have a baby. Like there was so many doubts and so many unbelievable statements that I told myself of what I couldn't do. And it was just a complete devastation. And, maybe it took the cops 15, 20 minutes. I don't know. It felt like forever because I was just sitting there boohooing with all these thoughts, very unclear. The only thing I was clear about was that my life was almost taken and my kids were there, the born one and the unborn one, we're all there. And so if somebody could do that to their own child, who am I? Obviously nothing. So the cops arrived and, they were able to take pictures. He wasn't punching me in my face. He was punching me in my head. So as soon as my ear was moved, it was very visible. They could see through the hair, like to the scalp and everything. And they had mentioned that it was like, he almost knew what he was doing. Like it was as if it was premeditated, like he knew where to hit, where the marks wouldn't be as prevalent. Um, Whatever. I at that point, I'm just concerned about my child and, our well-being. So he did get arrested. He was taken to into custody that evening. I did end up going back to the house. I barricaded the door with everything that I possibly could move. And I made a little exit strategy fun with my daughter, saying like, okay, if you hear me say go now, then that means open that window, jump on here, do this, do that, go right here. Like I had to create this escape route for her, without scaring her to death. And I think that, growing up in Chicago definitely helped that, because gun violence and game bangers outside on the rooftops, on the corners. I mean, this is something that she wasn't, not exposed to. She was very aware of, bad things. I just, it was very hard for her and me to know that it was the bad person is now the person that, we were supposed to spend our lives with, and we're having a baby by. So that was a very hard nugget to swallow. I didn't sleep at all that night, of course. I had my computer up and I was trying to, research this new state. What are the laws? What are my rights? I have no idea what to do, where to go. I had not a clue. And I quickly, had to figure out I have 47 days until my baby is due. What am I going to do? How am I going to figure out my life within this time frame and get all the data that I need in order to make decisions? That's like insane. So I took my daughter to school the very next day, like clockwork, and checked myself into the emergency room to make sure that, my unborn baby was okay. And of course, I shared what happened. I'm checking myself in. I have to, let them know why I'm there. And I just pleaded with the doctors, like, please, I need you guys to move my delivery date up. Like, the C-section's already scheduled. Can we just make it earlier? My baby does not need to go through the stressors that my body is going through. He will be better on the outside than on the inside. And it took a while. Long story short, I was able to, get their approval, and we planned for that. So now I'm 37 days out. And I'm like, okay, that's really not a lot in hindsight. It's really not. And then I think there was about 20 days left for my daughter to finish school. So everything is just really, trying to be strategized time wise by a timeline in my brain. And meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out, is he going to be released? Is he going to get bailed out? How long do I have? Maybe my 37 days that I'm thinking is going to be shortened to 10 if he's going to, come out anytime soon. So there was a lot of resources that I was able to utilize in the law enforcement arena, meaning that I had access to finding out, how long he was going to be retained up until the court date, when the court date was, which I did show up to and I did testify. And I'll say that the worst thing that any victim should ever go through after being victimized is to see their offender walk in. And I'll be very honest with you, I shrunk like a punk when I thought that I was strong enough to, say what needed to be said. And it's not a great memory because, I believed in myself and I couldn't control how I reacted and how I responded. The good thing is that I guess, the judge saw that and still decided to, proceed with the findings, and it ended up being a double attempted homicide. So he was given time. Of course, that time was cut very short, and I won't get too far into that without, coming back to how I was taking care of my kids. So during all this time, while my daughter has these 20 days left of school, I'm repacking our stuff. I'm moving everything that I can carry on my own, putting it into storage, thinking that, maybe my water will break soon and I can, take care of everything sooner. I'm carrying her up the stairs. Sometimes I was able to talk to neighbors that had kids about the same age and asked if, my daughter could play with them while I continue focusing on all the stuff that I have going on. I'm literally packing my stuff back up and moving and leaving only bare minimum things that we need day to day. And whatever I can't pick up or whatever doesn't fit in my car, I don't care. It's going to be left behind, sold, or whatever. I couldn't collect unemployment because I had quit voluntarily. I was unable to get a job because I was 8 months pregnant, and I was unable to leave the state because I was high risk. My pregnancy was high risk at that point. The doctor said, you cannot take a train or a plane or drive anywhere beyond 2 hours worth. So, basically figure it out. And that's where, I don't want to say the fun began, but that's where the most desperate survival mindset began. I remember crying at least a whole entire 24 to 48 hours, just crying. Why, how, I don't understand. Like, just real hardcore, victim understanding that I'm a victim, and I just don't understand why, and then it was, maybe 2-3 days later that those prayers changed to, okay, I'm here. If you're just sharing with me, a fraction of the pain and suffering that you've gone through, then I know that, that I'm a part of it. I feel grateful to understand now. So if you had the strength and you overcame and you endured and pursued and persevered, then I need that. That's what I need. I need to have that strength. I need to have that perseverance. I need to have that focus. I need to be able to endure. Like that's everything shifted for me. So now I just became very black and white. This is what has to be done. This is when it has to be done. This is how it has to be done. And that's what I became, very like you read earlier, very independent, very resourceful, and having to figure it out. So I was in line. I was in line for food stamps. I was in line for, shelter. I was in line for any type of assistance that is available. And that's not anything that's given right away. You have to go through application process. You have to go through follow up. You have to go through approval. You have to go through interviews. I mean, it took me a long time to be a recipient. I had to like show every single thing. I don't mind. I mean, I have nothing, everything is the truth. I'll show you whatever you need to be, be
It's the
shown.
waiting game though. It's the
But
time,
it's
and
the
it's
waiting game.
well, and
Yeah.
it's the fear of the unknown. Are they going to support me? I may have all the information, I may have all the facts, I may be a perfect candidate, but we have our self-limiting beliefs. And are they going to think that I'm worthy enough? Are they going to feel that I'm needy enough to be supported, whether it's short term or long term? Yeah, I've been through this with lots of different people, including my own parts in my own life and with my own adult children and stuff. And living that quiet desperation, it sucks. And through what you've been telling me, and I'll let you continue on, but from what you've been telling me, you're a tenacious person. You have a lot of tenacity, and all the different things you've gone through have been building blocks to the point of where, like you said, you became very independent and you did whatever it took, your stick to itiveness, to accomplishing, some sort of safety. Obviously it took a while past this for you to be completely feel, loved and safe, and for your both your kids and yourself. But your tenacity is something that you should be proud of, because I'm just getting to know you and I'm proud of you and I look forward to hearing more. So continue on from that point.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So you said continue on from that point. Which point do you want me to?
Wherever you feel like continuing on from. You talked about, you talked about packing. You were a high risk pregnancy. You weren't able to leave, right? You were told not to leave. You applied for all these programs to get support, whether it was food stamps or financial or accommodations. Where did it end up going from there?
Yeah. So I did have my baby, and I was still in that apartment. But what I was able to do is I was able to bring in the police report. I was able to bring in all of the, paperwork that I received from the county showing that, I had applied for food stamps, that I'm in this situation, etc. So I was successful because I had to advocate for myself to get my name off of that lease. So this way it wouldn't hinder me when I needed to find somewhere else for me and my children to go. So at this time, I had already had anything that I was able to take. It was already out. Like I said, everything else was pretty much left behind or sold if I couldn't carry it or fit it into my car. You really know what your essentials are when when you need to survive. So that's where I was with that. And I ended up renting a room for us three. I was not okay going into a shelter with a brand new baby. They don't even get their second sets of vaccines or inoculations until their second or third month. So my fear level was super high as it relates to taking a newborn into a shelter. So there was, times where I did have to live out of the car and, go to gas stations to use microwaves to warm up, milk and stuff like that. Not the greatest of stories or times, but you do what you need to do in order to provide. And so that's what I did. So I ended up, the first job that I ended up getting actually after I had my child, and waited until I was able to get my baby into daycare, because I knew the moment that I was able to do that, I can get back to the workforce, you know. So I became a life insurance agent, and I wish I would have thought it out more. Again, out of desperation, I'm just taking whatever's, coming my way. And life insurance was not it, because I had to talk to people about death all day long. And it wasn't all day long. It's like after they get home from work. And that's when I have to spend time with my kids doing their homework and making sure that dinner is ready. So that did not work. That was a flop. And I spent quite some time investing and doing that and pursuing that. So I wound up just taking like an administrative job. And at that point, I didn't even care about career. I just cared about what's my salary. I just need to make sure it's gonna, pay the bills and for me to take care of my kids. And that was all that was important to me. So that's what I did. And so, I was a part of a program where I was told, where the inmate was moving to and when the inmate was going to be released. And like everywhere else in the world, everybody's released early. And so, and maybe I'm not speaking for everybody, for the most part, especially in this particular situation for a double attempted homicide, spending under 2 years, that's really not a lot. So that was my reality there. I was already packed and ready to leave, again. So I had to relocate and, move, because I was not still in the same area, but I was still in the same state. And I just wanted to be completely out of everything. And I was never going back home, because we had, mutual friends. I wasn't going to go back to the place that we met. As far as I'm concerned, you lost all rights to talk to me or even see or have a relationship with your child, because you almost killed us. So why would I go somewhere where, you can try again or be successful next time? That's just not going to happen. So again, picked up, moved, relocated to a new spot, another foreign place, starting from scratch. And again, same, even though I went back to school, back to college to continue my, education. Again, I was not concerned about my title or my career. I was just more concerned about what's the salary. I need to make sure that I can cover everything.
Well, you were in complete survival mode. You're just trying to
Still,
survive,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, of course.
And so so with that, I don't want to leave out the most important pieces, which is, throughout those 2 years, I nonstop called number after number, reached out to organization after organization to see what assistance beyond food stamps, WIC, and, medical coverage is available, and it's a sad story to say that I must have received over 800 referrals. Oh, well, let me give you this number. Oh, let me connect you to this person. Oh, let me set you up over here with this organization. And it was just the same. It was just the same story over and over. It was like
Lots
I
of
was
lip
going in this.
service. You're getting a
Yeah,
lot
it
of lip
was.
service. Yes.
Yeah, it was a crazy 8 situation. I'm just like spinning and spinning and getting nowhere. And I will say that it probably was not until the 18th month mark after the incident and my 1006th phone call that I finally got somebody and said, you know what? I know an advocate. And I really want to connect you to this advocate. They know all of the different resources and the different legal assistant programs that are out there. And that was golden for me. If I did not continuously pursue for additional help and find somebody that understood and believed, I guess, and whatever potential I was exposing at the time, if I did not get hooked up with that advocate, there's no way in the world I would be where I am today, because that advocate knew what laws were available, what resources were available, and where to go to make sure that my tracks were being covered. And that goes into like the privacy component of things. And so I've learned how to seek out resources through that individual, which took me years obviously to figure out. but that was because I was boots on the ground. I was the one having to do it. It's not like the advocate was saying, oh yeah, this is where you go and send me the link. Like, this is what you need to find out. This is what you need to see if this is local to you. This is where you start, and then you drill down from there. They don't do all the work for you. They just tell you what you need to do
Well,
or where you need to start.
An advocate's like a coach. Like, they can give you, or a mentor, they can tell you the steps, but you still have to, like you said, put boots to the ground. Most people, though, throughout this sharing of your origin, most people are going to be boo-hoo, woo-hoo, shrivel up into a little ball, neglect their family, neglect themselves pushing and climbing, and you didn't. So kudos to you. Congratulations for having, again, back to I love tenacious people because I'm one myself, right? So continue on. So 18 months, you reached the advocate. You were able to figure things out yourself with their assistance.
Yeah. And that was golden. That was a golden ticket for me. I cannot be any more grateful than what I am. I mean, till the day I die, I'm just going to have profuse gratitude towards that person that referred me, and the advocate that continued, coaching and advocating for me. So I learned, like I said, so much. And I applied everything that I learned and grew so hungry to learn more that, I just pursue different things in my community. So what I did was, I looked into how I can better learn how to mitigate, right? How to mitigate domestic violence. I really wanted, like, something inside of me was like, maybe if you understood better how to mitigate, you can help coach people or teach people, based on your own experience. I always had this thing in my brain that I wanted to help others. I just didn't know how, and I surely was not ready. So I sat on a couple boards. I got into security. I worked directly with internal affairs as a volunteer. I started to learn a little bit about legislation and how to be an activist and lobby certain bills that are, exclusive to privacy and safety. And then I started finding different loopholes based on the programs that I was in and an active participant in. And when I identified loopholes, I was like, okay, hold on a second. What's the purpose of having this program if this, utility company or this particular industry, doesn't accept it or doesn't acknowledge it? Okay, how do I get around this, or how do I, educate them so I become an exception? And there's so much to it. So I stayed pretty active in the legislative arena as it relates to I guess exposing the loopholes, so we can start working on different bills to close those loopholes.
So you're trying to fill the holes. You're trying to fill holes in a boat, basically, that is right. It's sinking under the water. And yeah, I do the same thing with my own coaching and financial and lifestyle practice. I'm constantly helping people with their sinking boat so that they can at least stay above the waterline, right? So you're discovering, exposing all these loopholes within the political, legal system, obviously, and good for you. So
yeah, it didn't do me good though, because it was,
well, it was stressful.
I'm stuck in the loophole.
Well, you're stuck in the loophole, and it's a lot. I can't even begin to, understand the stress that it was for you. But you were giving a heck about the fact that others are going through what you're still going through, but you were farther in the journey. Like I tell people all the time, I'm coaching and helping you where I used to be, and I didn't want to be there. I had no choice, so I had to learn. I had to advocate for my family and myself, and learn specific things that I'm helping you with now. That took me, let's just use a decade, took me 10 years because of my knowledge and my ability to give a heck and care about you. Now, maybe you can do it in 3 years. Maybe you can do it in 1 year, whatever the case may be. My whole goal, as I was going through trials and tribulations, and I hear that from you too, is you were thinking, how can I help others? Obviously, the more I learn how to help others, it's helping me, but it's rounding me as a better roundabout person, part of me, to be a better version, to continually drive success, and that people don't have to live in that victim mentality the rest of their lives, they can't rise above it. And that's what I'm hearing from you, is that you throughout this whole journey got to a point where you wanted to fix the system so it could help you more, but then how can I teach to others what is available for them? And especially I hear that advocate was a huge driver for you. Am I wrong? Like you said,
Oh,
that advocate? Yeah.
oh yeah, they were definitely a huge driver for that, because it was that I was being educated. It took me a while to realize I was being educated, again, because I was boots on the ground. I was just doing. And so for the past 20 years, I mean, I'm still in a lot of the programs. I'm still, active in helping identify loopholes and talking with, legislation to, try to fill those gaps. And I will definitely talk a little bit more about that, because that's where my nonprofit comes into
Well,
play.
yeah. So this is, like I have questions and stuff. This is flowing really well. You so this your nonprofit and how you developed the BYIS system. So be your incredible self. This all ties together with this, I assume, with your nonprofit.
Yeah. So this is where everything kind of shifts for me, right? So I'm laser focused on protecting and providing for my children my entire life, right? And by the time my daughter hits her 20s and she's ready to leave, the nest, she openly had a conversation with me, and she said, I really honor everything that you have done as my mom. I don't think I know anybody stronger that, would be able to have done everything that you've done, especially, specifically not checking out. And she said, and as much as you were there, the helicopter mom, the making sure we had everything, the structure, the she said, unfortunately, you were unavailable to me emotionally. You were there, but I didn't feel you. I saw you, but I didn't feel you. And as you can imagine, my eyebrows are up, my eyeballs are popping out, my chest is pounding. I'm like, what? What? Completely like insulted, completely offended. I'm like, oh, hell no. Do you mean that you don't know how much love is required in order for me to do all of this that I've done? And as quickly as I realized I was having this knee-jerk reaction, I also realized that, her feelings are valid and I need to validate them for her. She's telling me something about me that hurt her to her core. And that almost negated every single thing I thought I was doing to protect her from, because that's how I felt as a child without my parents. And here I am in her life, supporting, doing, making sure, teaching, giving, doing. And she's feeling ultimately the same void that I felt my whole life. So
I heard that from my own kids too, because I was a single dad with 5 kids, right? So I heard that. I hear that now when I have conversations with my adult daughters and my son. Sometimes things will come up and they'll say, well, actually, you were there, but you weren't there. So that hurt me to a point where now I always am trying to be intentionally present emotionally, not just physically. And that it can be a struggle even today.
oh my gosh. Well, let me tell you how much I gave a heck about that. And that has
Okay.
shifted everything. Everything. My laser focus then shifted to like, she's right. Oh my gosh, how do I learn how to be emotional? How do I learn this? I cried. I think I cried more that night than I did the night that, I saved our lives, because that was so emotional for me. Oh my gosh, to hear my 20-year-old, after everything that we've been through, for her to feel that I was not emotionally there, devastated.
But it was
So
cathartic, though, in some ways, very cathartic for her to do that, to be vulnerable with you, cause you to stop and drop that emotional dam you had created and letting everything compartmentalize and ball up inside of you. And as you said, that was a pivotal moment in your life.
100%. So I was like, okay, how do I learn this? How do I learn emotion? Like what? Plus I was a tomboy, because growing up where I grew up. So, I was like, oh my gosh, this has got to happen. So I started doing a lot of inner work, inner size is what I call it. And, the kicker to that is I had about a 5-year period where I had back-to-back surgeries because the areas in my body that were used to fight for our life that night were compromised to the point where I needed to have surgical repairs. So they were all major surgeries and they were, back to back, and there was 4 of them. So every year, to a point almost where it was like every 8 months, I was having another surgery. So during that downtime of recovery from surgery, knowing that I'm paying the price for way back then, so it's like the trauma is reliving while I'm also dealing with my daughter's emotions, and I'm trying to deal with mine at the time, and I have nothing but the ceiling because I'm on bed rest. That's pretty challenging right there. So I decided to, just kind of research, what did our ancestors do when they needed to deal with real life situations without medication? Because I knew from my surgeries that medication was not good for me. I had many adverse events to medication, and I didn't want to feel like anything was being I guess manipulated. I wanted to deal with things as natural and authentic as humanly possible. And I started learning about the 5 love languages. That's not just for, couples. That's definitely for anybody you love.
I've,
I started.
I've 5 times read it, 3 times. I've listened to it twice on Audible. That was one of my favorite books of all time.
And that's the first one that I started with.
Yeah, it's amazing. I
It
smile
is.
because it is so many people that is such a treasure. They need to realize it's not just about having a relationship with a significant other. It's about, how do you treat everybody in life? Are you giving other people their love language so that you can get yours back without trying? Like, they just don't understand. I love it. So thanks for bringing that up.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's where I started. I started with that, and then it grew such an interest because I really was committed to fixing, this relationship with my daughter. She's getting ready to leave. I'm not going to be able to be helicopter mom, and everything that I was doing is just became who I was. That was my identity, and it was time to change that. So I further, sought out, emotional intelligence, emotional awareness, understanding and working through, childhood abandonment, working through, emotional voids, working through, resilience, and just so many different self-help workbooks and, understanding. I mean, I even got to the point where I was taking classes for herbal remedies and aromatherapy, and just really try to be still and understand everything to get aligned mentally and emotionally. I knew that my heart and my mind were on the battlefield all my life. And my daughter's need now became something that was not just going to fix our relationship, but it was going to align me the way I needed to be aligned. I didn't know it at the time. I was just doing. So when I started applying these things that I'm learning and doing, and, she thought I was being sarcastic. She was not taking me seriously. She thought I was, just, blowing smoke, or like I said, or being sarcastic, or, playful. And I got to a point where I was like, listen, I'm being super vulnerable, and it's really hard for me to continue this way when you're thinking that it's not serious, and it's almost becoming like you're rejecting me. So either you really want this or you really don't, because you're going to push me away. I'm telling you it's authentic, and I'm making my efforts because I want us to be good. And it took a while. It took about 2.5 years for us to work on that. And we even went to like a 2.5 day retreat where I probably went through 5 Kleenex boxes. You know, I can just say that today, we are good. She has a healthy mindset. She has a healthy emotional appetite. She may not agree to everything, and we definitely talk about and talk through some of the things that, she went through. And I feel so proud that both of my children, even though they know I may not like what they're gonna say, and they may be a little fearful of, my response, but they know that if they tell me what they're truly feeling or tell me what their true struggles are, we can work through it. I'm not going to take it personal. I will take it for face value and we will work through whatever it is. And so, that's where we are today. And over the past 2 years, I have been working towards getting all of my certifications. I have my high performance certification through the High Performance Academy or Institute with Brendan Burchard. I had someone that believes in my purpose so much so that they were married for 18 years. And when they got divorced, her ex-husband within 18 months committed a murder suicide. And she was still on the life insurance as a beneficiary. And she believed in my mission and my message so much so that she paid for mentorship programs for me. I'm so humbled to say that I went through Tony Robbins. I'm so humbled to say that, I went through John Maxwell, and that I've gone through a lot of the emotional awareness, trauma driven recovery and other programs that help you really get through those traumatic blockages that we go through. And it's interesting because as I go through these programs and do the work, it's almost like I did all of this when I was a little girl. And it's like I'm repeating what I knew instinctively as a child. Now it's like I'm not being taught something new. I'm being reminded what to do. And that is when my light went off and said, okay, everything that I've been through on top of what I'm being told to do, like for homework and self-help work, I'm like, I've already done this. I can now apply my tools and just continue using them so that I stay in this place of confidence and I can build my boundaries. I know who I am because I know who I'm not. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. We're going to run out of time here. So I want to actually get into some, and your origin's amazing. Like people that are listening or watching this on YouTube, it is a very emotional circumstance that Agape has had to go through. And as she realized that a lot of the things that we use as responses as children, we refigure out if we want to as adults to move forward in life. So your personal journey of your post-traumatic growth has led you to developing transformational programs, as you mentioned, various forms of coaching. You've gone through all the certification from John Maxwell to Tony Robbins, and you established a nonprofit to help real-time victims. Can you tell us more about your program and how it works in regards to the nonprofit you created to help victims?
Sure. So the nonprofit, the name is Confronting Domestic Violence. I can't believe it was available, but it was. We are in the pre-launch phase. Right now, I'm just waiting for the 501c3 status from the IRS. And during this application process and review process, I've successfully established a full program. Right now, it's only in the state of Nevada, but I'm working on expanding that into other states. And Nevada actually on the list is third highest ranked in domestic violence. And so what my program offers to qualified individuals is relocation services so they do not have to leave all their belongings behind when they are moving for safety. In that process, I've also met with a few other nonprofits that offer other programs. Then we're looking at collaborating together so that if there is a victim, that's being relocated, number one, once they reach their relocation, space, this nonprofit that I'm looking at creating a letter of intent with, they offer hypnotherapy. So that would be extremely useful in preventing the cycle of going back. And then the other nonprofit that I'm working with as well to hopefully establish another collaboration partner is where if your job cannot or does not offer a different location for you to work based on your, where you're relocating to, then there are available programs that are offered to help teach you how to build websites so you can actually change your career path and be self-sufficient financially. So I'm really looking forward to not just, being this one little nugget to help,
Well,
somebody,
in Nevada,
but also collaborating, with these other nonprofits so it can be a true transformation for that person.
So do
And
you
then
offer programs and different things on a one-on-one coaching basis, like over video, like Zoom? Are you looking at working with that, or do you have things in? So it's fine that you're working in Nevada and you want to expand out. Can somebody actually reach out to you though, and you be able to give them advice or instruction on how to, figure out their stuff wherever they live?
okay, fair. So again, so there's the nonprofit and the for-profit, right?
Yeah.
So the nonprofit, beyond the relocation services, I also will be certifying current life coaches or current counselors that have clients that have a passion towards domestic violence. And what I offer is a 16-week program for them to go through so they can become certified in being domestic violence resourced. And what that means is that those coaches and counselors will be doing the groundwork, the boots on the groundwork that I did when I was a real-time victim, but they're doing that in place of a real-time victim, so that this way, when their client expresses that they are in a situation as a coach and counselor, you can't tell people what to do, like we mentioned earlier. But if you give them a piece of paper or a printout that has all the resources that they need, then when it's time and they know when, then they can go to that resource and make those phone calls and save that person years, months, weeks, a life. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I put
Collapsing
them
time
through.
frames. That's what you're basically, in a nutshell, is working on, right? To ensure people can do it in a timely fashion.
Well, yeah. Well, yes and no. If the counselor and coach goes through my 16-week course and I vet everything that they have collected, meaning that it's going to be from whatever state that they're in, right? They need to find out what are the available resources right now, starting from that legislative level all the way down to your local community, because your client will need all of that information if they are in absolute danger. And it can save them all that time and heartache and headache trying to see where can they find these resources. Like I said, it took me almost 18 months.
Your 16-week program is basically what that advocate did for you, give you things that you needed to accomplish. You still had to put your boots to the ground. So the 16-week program, you're going to help them, but they're going to get by having structure or what they need to do, but they still have to do the boots on the ground in their own state and figure it out.
Right. That's the only thing that I'm doing that my advocate did is sending them to do the work. What I'm doing differently is I'm laying out on all the different levels, where to do it, how to do it. Trust me, it took me almost the whole 20 years to get all of this information. And that's what I'm consolidating. I'm consolidating what I learned on a high level and what I did as the boots on the ground. And I'm combining all that into this 16-week program. So
and it should be for profit though. Like you talked about non and for profit, you have to, your knowledge in those 20 years of what you've gone through needs to be heard by others, but there also has to be some sort of it's okay to want money to survive, to grow, to prosper in our lives. So, this 16-week program that you offer, is it something that is available to anybody around the US?
So again, for the nonprofit side of things, the nonprofit is all about helping real-time victims.
Yeah.
So if I can certify those coaches and counselors, then they are able to help those real-time victims with the resources they gathered from taking my class.
Okay.
Okay. And then my for-profit, yes, those are my for-profit, I work with women that have left their abusive relationship and are ready to move on mentally and emotionally, in control of their triggers, reclaiming their identity and creating their future life. Because I know what it feels like after the dust has settled. I know what it feels like a year or two later when you're like, okay, I got through and out all of that, but why is that still taking up space in my brain? Why am I still doubting myself? Why am I still seeing these red flags everywhere? There's this remnants of trauma that we deal with later. And that's where my for-profit comes in. I have, again, it's another 16-week program where I use
Okay.
the high performance coaching and certification as the foundation. It's a 12 life pillars that we go through in a 6-month time frame, and we really work towards the clarity, the energy, the purpose, the commitment, the influence. And it's intense, but it's to get you to that place where you feel like you have thrived beyond that trauma. You're no longer identifying yourself with that traumatic event. You are thriving beyond it. You know who you are, you know where you're going, you're doing things with intention, you're aware of your surroundings, you're able to control your triggers by using my Be Your Incredible Self formula.
Which is awesome. And yeah, because I want to ensure people, like, your origin is fantastic, but at the end of the day, I want people that are listening or watching to know what you can do on of course. I got a little bit confused in regards to your nonprofit versus your profit, and I appreciate you explaining the fact. Obviously we don't have time to go through the 12 life pillars. We we could be talking for a few hours because of the amount of information that you could share to help others. So one of the things that you mentioned, you talked about our thoughts and stuff. How does one understand the impact of one's inner voice and how it affects their life?
Well, thank you for even bringing that up, because that's definitely one of the things I hone in on. The first thing that I ask, which is hilarious and it's almost a icebreaker, is that, the voice that you use when you talk to yourself, when you're being your own critic, if you can please put that out into a tone, let me hear what that inner critic actually sounds like. I want to hear it. And most people have no idea what it sounds like or how to even create the sound from their brain and bring it into existence. And a lot of people are honest and transparent and say it sounds so sick and terrible that I'm embarrassed to say it. And you can't do it. Like, who's talking to you like that? And so, the thing is that when we talk to ourselves, or when we inside or outside, okay, when we're saying things to ourselves, those become our affirmations. And the definition of affirmation means that we're validating it. It's basically considered the truth. And so imagine if you're saying all of these wrong negative things to yourself and you're just continuously reaffirming that that's what it is. That becomes your belief system. And so what happens when you have a belief system? Your walk and your talk aligns and follows suit with that belief system. So now you're moving in the world and you're moving, around people that you care about, and the way that you're talking, all of these things are connected to your belief system. So if they're negative, that's what you're putting out there. And that's more than likely what you're going to be receiving as well. So how to shift that, right? I'd like to talk about mirror work. How's your relationship with the mirror? Are you walking by talking smack to yourself? Or are you like, okay, hold on a second. Is my outer matching my inner? I want to look like $1 million, but do I feel like $1 million? Okay, how do I get there? Where does that relationship with the mirror and yourself kind of start? And how is it? Because we can all level up on our trust for ourselves, on the love that we have towards ourselves, on the way that we talk to ourselves. There's enough critics on the outside that want to hold us down or keep us back. Why would we stand in our own way? Especially we wouldn't even let somebody talk to us the way that we are talking to ourselves. Like that same line that you draw, you need to draw it with you too.
That makes sense, 100%. Yeah, I like that mirror work. I've heard that before. But yeah, I like the fact. How is your inner critic talk? Like, bring it out to the open. Let me hear it. And when you were talking about that, I was thinking, how does my inner critic talk to me?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You bring up a valid point though, because many of us live on a hamster wheel in life, and we don't have self-awareness. We don't have the ability to look at what has transformed us. And I haven't heard somebody mention affirmations the way you talk about it, right? Um you're literally creating your own belief system through affirmations. So what are your affirmations? I've heard some people's affirmations and they make me chuckle because they're not conducive to helping them move forward. Unfortunately, we might have to end up having you on again, because there's so many things else that I wanted to ask you, but we're running out of time. If you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Never giving up and giving a heck. Okay.
Yes,
The price you pay for neglecting your mind is not worth it.
that is
Do
good.
not neglect your mind. Your mindset is who you are. It's how you cope. You can move 1,000 times, but you live in your head.
Isn't that the truth though? Right?
Yes.
And when we live in our heads so much, one last thing before we wrap up, when we live in our heads so much, back to what we talked about prior, it's impossible to be present with others. And then we become emotionally disconnected, and circumstances like your daughter feeling like you weren't emotionally connected, or me hearing that from my own kids as adults as well, was because I was in my own mind all the time. And I was presenting that fact that I was a facade. I was presenting a facade to other people of what I was, what I represented, but yet my mind was always swimming about and thinking about other things. So my physical being was present. My mind was always swimming upstream somewhere else, trying to get to my destination. So I appreciate you saying that. The price you pay for neglecting your mind is not worth it. That is very, very powerful and a great closing message. So our time is almost up, and I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what's the best way to reach you?
Yes. So actually, right now I am transitioning my website, but you will be able to find me on beyouриncredibleself.com, because my nonprofit is in pre-launch. I don't know when you're broadcasting this, but it will be confrontingdomesticviolence.org. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. I've been off social media for the past 25 years for privacy and safety reasons. And now with my kids' blessings, I'm finally here. So I'm gonna need your help, everybody's help, with like follow or connect or like or share, and just let people know, where I can be found and how they can help contribute and align with our missions. The statistics are 1 out of 3. There's so many of us out here, and we don't have to be ashamed. We can build a community.
Oh,
It's about being your
absolutely.
incredible self, regardless of your trauma. You can thrive beyond it.
Oh, absolutely. And by you doing what you're doing, and this episode will be live in about 4 weeks from now. I'll make sure that all that information you mentioned is in the show notes. The listeners, the people watching, you can access it at giveaheck.com, go into the podcast portal. And before it goes live, there's anything specific that you would like put in the show notes for people to access you, please get that information to me. But yeah, so bottom line, we have a responsibility to give a heck about others. We just do, especially when we've gone through so much trauma and so much adversity ourselves. to sit back and go, well, it's not my problem, it's everybody else's problem. That's what most of society has done. Well, I've gone through all of it. I don't want to open up those wounds again. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. People get into that self-protected bubble. Yet there's other people around them that are going through severe trauma, and you've decided to not be that person. You've accepted as much as you can, because sometimes it's hard for us to accept everything we've gone through, but you're pivoting. Well, you already have pivoted, but you're continuing to pivot with your nonprofit and your profit to making a difference in people's lives, women specifically, which is fantastic because they're marginalized as a gender, unfortunately, and men have dominated and caused so much grief and trauma. And our lawmakers, our politicians, most of them are men, unfortunately, and they continue to propagate the downtrodden, or however we want to put it, women to stay stuck. So those listening, please reach out to Agape. Again, giveaheck.com. If check out the links that you can access her information, and have a call with her, because you know what? You too deserve to have success in your life and not feel trapped and helpless and on a hamster wheel forever. Anything else you would like to end with?
I think that was the perfect closeout. Yeah, definitely
So,
find me, and I offer a 47-minute discovery session, emotional discovery session, and 47 minutes, because if I could figure out my life in 47 minutes, we can have some serious breakthrough. I'm sorry, my life in 47 days,
yeah.
we can have a serious breakthrough in 47 minutes.
Well, I appreciate you, Agape. Thanks so much for being on Give a Heck. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.